Here.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
And here we go. This is Mike Lodge. I am the business advisor. Unfortunately, today we're not going to be talking about business. We're going to be talking about peace. We're going to be talking about Ukraine and Russia. And we're going to be asking the question, can there be peace? Can there be peace talks begun between these countries? And it's not just Russia or Ukraine. It's also the European Union. So we have some questions that we're going to ask today. And we are going to talk about the strategy of what we need to do in order to develop a peace process. Now, the question has been asked, and it was asked of me yesterday on Twitter by somebody who used to be an ambassador to Russia, by the way. The question was asked if there can be peace talks established and between Ukraine and Russia. And he wanted specifics. I believe there can be, but it has to be independent, and the U.S. must remain on the sidelines. The U.S. is on the verge. Biden and U.S. senators are in Europe. Is in Europe at the moment, and going into Ukraine, touting war, promising more and more war products to be sent to them and more money. That has got to stop. They are literally on the verge of escalating the war of Ukraine and Russia to involve the United States in a possible nuclear war. Senator Lindsey Graham has led the fight for war in Ukraine with Russia for years now. Even when John McCain was alive, he and John were going over to Ukraine and making promises that they would support them. These U.S. leaders who are advocating for more war are acting very recklessly. At the moment, both Russia and Ukraine do not have anything to offer each other, especially since Western nations have put so much money in military support to keep the war going. The United States seems to be hoping for war to destroy Putin. That's the whole mental capacity at the moment. And that is a very dangerous strategy to take on. It puts the American people in danger. It may not just involve Russia, but could also involve China, because China is an ally of Russia. So what do we have to do? We have to focus on engagement. We need a starting point and strategically prepare for talks and envision a structure for negotiations. This means we need to begin engagement with both sides, all sides, Russia, the European Union, Ukraine. The U.S. has done nothing to encourage engagement, so we must now use an outside source that is independent from the war, a neutral party, to begin the engagement, a neutral head of state. This means broadening a peace process beyond Russia-Ukraine negotiations to include a separate negotiation involving neutral parties. We need to find out and address what needs to be put on the table from both Ukraine and Russia and the European Union. We need to find out and address what needs to be put on the table. We need to know. In order for the peace process to be engaged, it needs neutral mediators to engage it with. If you are a neutral head of state, right now would be a great time to stand up and take on this role and put together a good team. Then we need to talk about territories. So we need to keep the status of Ukrainian territory seized by Russia undetermined pending the completion of negotiations. The U.S. has done too much to damage and can no longer be trusted in the peace process. The U.S. has created a threat of nuclear war and have threatened both Russia and China They were doing that over the weekend. However, if there is an agreement for negotiations, the U.S. must remain silent and remain on the sidelines. They've done too much damage. Then we need to talk about the concessions, and this is the most difficult part of any negotiation. As in any war, the lengthening of the conflict, the losses on each side, and the political entrenchment of belligerent demands can make it more difficult or even politically dangerous for leaders to make concessions. The better chance of winning concessions will come from a broad process that can address the many issues in dispute, including many that risk hardening in place in a new Cold War. And we're beginning to see that now. These will include nuclear arms control talks and cyber warfare and other subjects. The U.S. on their own must address Russia's role in distant conflict zones and mutual accusations by Russia and the West that each is interfering in the other's political systems. While Ukraine's territory, integrity, and status seem like the biggest obstacles to a peace deal, issues such as the investigation of war crimes, the accountability for rebuilding Ukraine, and Russia's role, Russia's future role in the region may prove even more difficult. The first objective is to bring about engagement in the forward discussions on peace. The EU must engage with Russia quickly. Critically, the European Union and Russia will have the reset. They're going to have to reset the whole relationship, which collapsed after Russia's 2014 invasion of Crimea. Europe's sanctions on Russia and divestment from dependency on Russia oil and gas pose long-term costs for both sides. Enticing Putin to offer concessions to Ukraine might be achieved by creating a broader zone for negotiating his complaints against Europe, the United States, and NATO. The key to all three negotiations is to ensure that they include regional neighbors and that all sides see a chance to make political and economic gains at different tables, while also creating disincentives for prolonging the war. The question is not whether to talk to the Russians or not, but it's what to talk to them about and when. Thus, to bring peace between Ukraine and Russia, we have to engage aggressively with independent parties to lead the peace process. Bring in a team of independent mediators and build a peace transition team. Remember, a mediator never manipulates parties to a specific outcome, but instead manipulates reactive parties towards a peaceful and truthful conversation that can lead to peace. Mediation is an opportunity for both sides, each side, all sides, to present their case and to get disputing parties to get back to the negotiation table again. It's the engagement that is needed, the mediation that is needed, the thoughtful process of discussions. The United Nations has done nothing to keep peace between nations. The primary, the fundamental, the essential purpose of the United Nations is to keep peace. Everything it does which helps prevent World War III is good. Everything which does not further that goal, either directly or indirectly, is at best superfluous. Thus, in the case of the United Nations with Russia on the Security Council, who has a veto vote, is not the place to put our trust on peace talks at the moment. America should never have been involved in the war between these two nations. We have been warned about these types of disputes by former statesmen of our country. Henry Cabot Lodge said, "The United States is the world's best hope, but if you fetter her in the interests and quarrels of other nations, if you tangle her in the intrigues of Europe, you will destroy her power for good and endanger her very existence." And this is where we stand today. Where we have senators in Ukraine, we have the president in Ukraine pledging more money, pledging more equipment to fight this war, because their whole goal is to destroy Putin, not to create peace. And that puts us into a reckless situation. That puts all Americans at danger. Nuclear war is something we have fought so hard against for the last many years. And yet here we stand today with three mighty nations with bombs pointed at each other, with nuclear warheads. Because we have politicians that are purely political, not thinking about the broader picture of what will happen to the United States. So we are at risk because of reckless behavior by people in the United States Senate, in the Congress, and at the White House and the President. If anything happens, it started with President Biden. He's the one who started this whole process, this whole destructive attitude with Ukraine. And the problem is that he and his family have had such different types of ties with Ukraine that you have to doubt his motives. You have to doubt his leadership ability, because he has complicated it with business dealings with a corrupt nation. And Ukraine is a corrupt nation. It's a dangerous nation. And the game that they're playing with Russia and China and the United States and the European Union at this moment has the upper hand if they use it wisely. They can begin the negotiating process today by negotiating with Russia, by begin the talks with Russia. Forget about what the United States says, because the United States has been wrong in this whole issue of Ukraine for many, many years. Our relationship with Ukraine has been a stressful one because of the criminality of various issues between our politicians and their people. So we have to change our view now. And the view is, it's time to talk peace. Not war. Don't listen to Lindsey Graham. Do not listen to the president. Listen to your own hearts as Americans. Because now it's very stressful because we have a recession going on. Our finances are tough. And we have a president who is acting very recklessly with our lives. Listen, if you would like to have more conversations with me and want to send me a question, send it to thebusinessadvisor at gmail.com, or you can go to my website at www.lodge-co.com. Again, that's www.lodge-co.com. And you can make an appointment with me if you want to have a 60-minute business conversation. I love those conversations. Everybody go out and have a great day. I love you. I love America. We got to start talking peace. We've gone too far now. We're on the verge of something bad. God bless each and every single one of you. Talk with you soon. Bye-bye.